Hey folks, tonight we're debating whether or not the Quran is scientifically accurate, and we are starting right now with Hussein's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Hussein. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, everyone. So the Quran has been praised by both Muslims and non-Muslims alike for its linguistic genius, as well as some scientific claims that were later found out to be true. Islam in the Quran has scientific miracles within the Quran and a true reflection of reality, and thus shows Islam's truth. We do not even need these miracles, as there's plenty of rational arguments for God in Islam. However, these are further signs of Islam's truth. Obviously, I, as a Muslim, believe that this is a sign of the Quran's divinity and hope to prove that to you all today as well. The Quran has stories and is mostly a guidance to humanity on how to behave. However, there are statements that are open-ended interpretation, and the Quran itself acknowledges this. Many of these interpretations are scientifically valid and reflect the real world. Atheists like Apus, however, consistently twist Quranic scripture and hadith, where there will be an Arabic word and has multiple meanings in order to make the Quran say a false statement. However, I'll be trying to put those to bed today and showing you the beauty of the Quran and the claims, because all that matters is the Quran does align with reality within some of these statements. So there are plenty of claims within the Quran and the reality of the world. I'm going to go over zoology, embryology, and cosmology with some statements. We can start off with zoology. So who's the first person to discover that female bees are the bosses and male bees are the workers? Some of you would say, if you did a Google search like I did, it'd be Johann Dizeron, which was a Catholic priest in 1845. However, actually, if you go back to the 7th century, Prophet Muhammad actually wrote this, and stated this within the Quran. So think about this. Did the prophet go to a field of bees, wear a beekeeping suit, observe the bees from afar, take notes, record it, do peer-reviewed findings like every modern person wants you to do? No, this only seems to have known by someone who is getting divine knowledge through God. So the quote from this is, "And your Lord Allah revealed the bees, build your hives and mountains, trees in what they build." In another section of Quran, it states, "The Lord Allah revealed to the bees that build your hives and mountains, trees, and in what they build. And then eat for females from every fruit, and follow for females your Lord's enslaved paths from its bellies. Exit drinks of different colors, and it's healing for man." So these are signs that there's essentially the word used is the female version of a bee, and that's showing the accuracy in describing a female bee, which we now know that bees that are collecting the honey and working are actually female. A similar thing happened with ants as well. And again, keep in mind, these were recent discoveries. So worker ants don't have wings and are all females. And there's a quote with Solomon, "Until when they came unto the valley of the ants, and ants said, O ants, enter your home so that you do not get crushed by Solomon and his soldiers while they do not feel it." So if this ant had wings, it would have flown. However, it didn't have this option. So instead, its only option was to hide underground. And since it did not have wings, then it was definitely a female ant. And again, the Quran correctly adjusts this ant in the female mode. So another example of this is with spiders. And then here's the irony, is atheists did actually used to use this as an attempt to disprove the Quran, initially saying that both male and female spiders build webs. However, both build webs. It's accepted within an arachnological literature that adult female spiders build the webs, while adult males only do web building that's required for courtship and sperm induction. So the Quran states, "The likeness of those who take to themselves protectors other than Allah is that of the spider. It builds a house, but the most fragile of houses is the spider's house. If only they had knew." Again, ask yourself, did Muhammad, while fighting a war against his peer who shunned him and forced him to flee his home, how did he discover this knowledge, when he was doing all these things and he somehow also had the time to do all these studies? So another miracle of the Quran is that the animals speak to each other and operate in some capacity similar to humans. The quote is that there's no land animal nor bird that flies with wings who are not nations like you. we did not miss a thing in the book, then to their Lord they will be gathered. Atheists attempt, again, and Apos has done this himself, to use this quote to say they're solitary animals. Again, Ibrahim, when referenced in the Quran, was a nation unto himself. So a ummah unto himself. And the word is ummah, which is nation. So embryology, again, this is a fairly recent field of study beginning in the 19th century. So you can rest assured that Muhammad, peace be upon him, would not have had access to the tools of the modern time to confirm any of these teachings or infer these facts. However, the Quran did state with reality that the reality when it came to embryology. So I'm sure some of you guys have heard this, but we created a man from an extract of clay. Then we made him as a drop in place of settlement, firmly fixed. And then we made him into a drop into an alaka, which is a leech or suspended thing, and blood clot. And then we made the alaka into a mudga, which is a chew-like substance. And this is in Quran 23, 12, 14. And then we have developed the semen into a leech. And then we've developed the leech into a lump, and then a lump into bones. And then we've cloned these bones with flesh, and we produced it into another feature. Most blessed is the Allah, the best of creators. So in this verse, the fetus acquires those features after clothing the bones with flesh, and it turns out to be the correct order of development: bones, muscles, and then facial features. And then we can go into cosmology. There are three possibilities to how the universe could end: the Big Rip, Big Crunch, and Big Chill. NASA has ruled out the first scenario. If you look at the universe today, this leaves the universe with two possible endings, and Stephen Hawking's proposal predicted the universe would stop expanding and collapse on itself, which is the Big Crunch. And this is referenced twice within the Quran. And then you ask about the hour, when will it come? The knowledge of it rests with my Lord. None of it can reveal its coming except he. It weighs heavily on the heavens and the earth. It will not come upon you except suddenly. They ask you if you are responsible for it, say knowledge of it rests with Allah, but most people do not know. The Quran uses the term weighs, which means by gravity. But from general relativity, we know that gravity is curvature of space-time, and we know that wormholes are the equivalent of folding space-time like a book. Again, this is also referenced in Quran 21:104. On the day when we will fold the heaven like the folder compacts the books, as we have originated the first creation, we shall return it, a promise binding on us. Surely we will deliver. So in one verse, the Quran, or God promises to make the big crunch by gravity. In another verse, folding space-time like the book. Since both verses are describing the same event, that gravity is a curvature of space-time. Again, how could an illiterate man 1400 years ago known about gravity being the curvature of space-time? How could it know about the big crunch? You know about the big crunch. So another example of these kind of things is gravitational waves. So they're disturbances in the curvature fabric of space-time generated by accelerated masses and propagate waves outward from the space at the speed of light. Gravitational waves is a branch of observable astronomy that uses gravitational waves to collect observational data, yada, yada, yada. But you can, look this up on Wikipedia as well. And so there are waves in space-time, and this was only known recently. However, it was portrayed in the Quran 1400 years ago. So in 1520, on the day when the heaven vibrates in waves. So astronomers just confirmed the existence of dark energy or dark matter, a mysterious repulsive force that acts in opposite to gravity. As the distance increases, the attractive of gravitational force decreases, but this is a mysterious force which scientists still haven't really confirmed what dark matter is. So anyways, this is mentioned as in we built it with craftsmanship and we are still expanding. So this is a reference to essentially that dark matter is expanding the universe. So as you can see, the Quran makes many claims regarding a wide range of topics, and I didn't even cover, a lot like things like biology, geology, astronomy, meteorology. The Quran, however, is accurate information in all these multiple realms and would not have been available or known to Muhammad or the people surrounding him at the time. And therefore, this shows the Quran is divinely inspired. However, atheists want to proclaim that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was somehow an ignorant warlord on one hand who only cared about women in power. And then, however, on the other hand, he miraculously was able to either infer these things or just somehow knew all this knowledge from other societies, and gathered it all somehow everywhere. So, the other argument is that he got it wrong, which I'll try and work with later when Apos does his opening. So Thank you.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. I'm your host, James. We are glad you were here, no matter what walk of life you were from. And with that, we're going to kick it over to AP. Thrilled to have you here, AP. The floor is yours for your opening statement as well.
Thank you so much. Just remembered I forgot to set a timer again, but once I have that here, I will start immediately. All right. So we heard a lot of things right here from Hussein, and unfortunately, many of the things that we have heard, almost everything here, sounds quite absurd to the regular human in the 21st century. Not only did he present strange ideas as if they were acceptable, he also entirely twisted the Quran's words according to his own modern, supposedly scientific understanding of the world around us. He said that people think Muhammad was just an ignorant warlord who cared about power and women. I would say that's correct. Muhammad was actually an ignorant warlord in the 7th century who had probably mental problems and was very obsessed with power, with fighting, and with having as many women as possible, which the Quran emphasizes very much. By the way, since Hussein knowingly referred to me with a derogatory, with an insult the entire time, I will also return the favor and refer to Muhammad with an insult, and everybody can thank him for this. So I will call Muhammad Mopus as of now. Muhammad or Mopus made many prophecies. He himself said that Muhammad wrote the Quran or wrote something in the Quran on accident. Fine, I accept it was an accident. Muhammad is supposedly a prophet to whom the scripture was revealed through an angel. And when we go back to actually look at that scripture, we will find that it is full of ignorance. And in order to show you the ignorance, I will share my screen here and let you in on the big secret of how ignorant the Quran actually is. Oh, by the way, I want to point out one funny fact here. Hussein mentioned toward the end there that the Quran predicted the big crunch, which he considers a very credible, scientific understanding of how the universe ends. Apparently, he's unaware of the fact that the big crunch is considered a wildly pseudo-scientific hypothesis that is considered not very credible. So that was far in the past that people actually considered the Big Crunch a good way to predict the end of the universe. Right now, the predominant science is that the universe will probably be flatly expanding forever, and an idea of a big crunch is entirely baseless. So even when he appeals to such a modern hypothesis, he's doing a huge blunder here. So the Quran mentions a lot of things about the earth and the sky, and it doesn't say anything about the universe because the Quran never mentions the word universe, never mentions anything close to it. The universe is something that we only recently began to understand. The Quran describes the earth as something that Allah spread, and He set mountains into this earth firmly. It already sounds a little bit ignorant, but we will, of course, come to all the other claims that the Quran makes. The Quran describes stars in the sky as missiles that are thrown at rebellious devils. It says, against every rebellious devil, so they may not listen to the high assembly of angels. Allah created the stars, and those stars are shot at the devils, thrown at the devils by these angels to prevent those those devils from going up there, which of course is a very poor understanding of what stars are. And also, this Quran verse actually refers to meteors in the sky, which people in the past, and some people still today, thought were stars. They are not stars, they are meteors. When they enter the atmosphere, they light up, which is why it looks like there is some light moving up there, but it has nothing to do with stars. Muhammad also further explained that these shooting stars are, thrown at devils who try to obtain secret knowledge from the heavens and bring it to soothsayers who then pretend to magically know what is in the future. I know, very strange fantasy world that is going on here in the 7th century, but quite appropriate for an ignorant desert. The Quran said that the sun runs towards a stopping point. Actually, to be accurate, it says that the sun runs towards its resting place, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It says that the sun and the moon can never reach each other, that the night can never overtake the day, but all of them are in an orbit and they are constantly swimming. It describes basically the sun and the moon chasing each other and the day and the night also chasing each other. There is more detail that we will come to here, which will show that this is an incredibly poor understanding of the universe around us. The Quran says, by the sun and its brightness, and by the moon when she follows him. So in this fantasy world, the sun moves constantly up there, and the moon is constantly following the sun. When in reality, we know that that is not the case. This is how people saw it in the past when they looked up to the sky, but in reality, it is the Earth revolving around the sun with all the other planets, and the moon is revolving around us. It may only appear to an ignorant eye as if the two objects were following each other. The Quran makes more ignorant statements in the same chapter where it says, by the day when it displays the sun and the night when it covers it. Notice how it says here, by the day when it displays the sun and the night when it covers it. The Quran actually, like many other primitive cultures in the past, was unaware of the role of the sun and thought that the day and the sun are separate things. The daylight comes and the sun happens to come with the daylight. It is just a blessing from Allah. And this is just one of the signs of that specific ignorance. It further says the sun runs toward a resting place. That is the determination of the mighty and the knowing. The sun runs toward a resting place. The sun, which is at the center of our solar system around which we revolve, it does not do any such thing. You might say this might be metaphorical. This might not be literal, but there is a lot here to disprove that claim. For example, if we go to the authentic reports and look at what Muhammad said, we see this specific report, which I love, which says, narrated by Abu Dhar, the Prophet asked me at sunset, do you know where the sun goes? Notice it is the Prophet himself who initiates this and says, do you know where this goes as the sun is setting? And it says, I replied, Allah and his apostle know better. Unfortunately, they don't. He said, it goes until it prostrates itself under the throne and takes the permission to rise again. And it is permitted, and then a time will come when it will be about to prostrate itself, but its prostration will not be accepted. And it will ask permission to go on its course, but it will not be permitted. But it will be ordered to return whence it has come. And so it will rise in the west. And that is the interpretation of the statement of Allah, and the sun runs to its resting place. That is the decree of Allah, the exalted in might, the all-knowing. This is neither a joke nor a metaphor for anything. You can clearly see that Muhammad asks his follower, do you know where this goes, the sun right now? And he's like, no, you know best. And he's like, well, it goes to prostrate itself to Allah under the throne, and then it asks to rise again. But one day Allah will not allow it to rise again and say, go back where you came from, and then it will come from the west. And this is a very prominent belief among Muslims all around the world, that one day the sun will rise from the west. And you don't really think about this, about the logic of it when you grow up as a Muslim, but it's just a very terrible understanding of how the world works. One of the claims of the Quran is that the hour has come and the moon was split in two. There are lengths to which we can go to point out that it is nearly impossible that the moon was split in two in the 7th century, and nobody in the world noticed it, made a note of it. Nobody talked about it at all, despite the fact that people in this time were very active and were observing the skies, and a lot of people had a lot of beliefs about the moon and the sun. It further says that the sky is a ceiling, that Allah made the heavens without pillars that you can see, which is a very odd idea, considering that the sky is not actually an object, but rather just the atmosphere surrounding the Earth, which is held together through gravity, which by the shining of sunlight makes everything appear blue. And to us, it looks like there is an object above us, but it's not. It's just air. It's just atmosphere. It further describes that the sky could be falling down, or a part of the sky could fall down, that Allah will roll up the sky one day, which is, again, a completely ignorant understanding of it. It says that Allah created the earth first and then the heavens, the seven heavens, which is a completely ignorant understanding of how things came into existence. If you want to appeal to modern science, we could throw this out directly. We all know that the earth didn't come into existence before everything out there. The earth came into existence a long time after the heavens or the universe or the galaxies and all that, and so on. I thought I would have much more time than I did here, but there's just so much in the Quran that we can reference here and debunk. Long story short, the Quran is definitely not an accurate source for science. It is full of ignorance, and I will rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that opening as well. And folks, we're going to do a couple of quick housekeeping things. In particular, if you love debates and this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. We have many more debates to come. And if you didn't know this, folks, we are very excited. We are launching a huge shorts campaign. We're finally doing it. We're going to basically want to let you know. The heads up is this. You may at some point see a short where you're like, oh man, the atheist or the Christian or the Muslim got dunked on. We are going to put shorts out that in some cases you might be like, oh, it's like I felt like that was like kind of one-sided. It wasn't equal time. Want to give you a heads up. That is the case, that we are going to do that. We're going to try to do it equally so everybody gets dunked on equally. But the idea is we're not meaning it for it to be like the end, people hear it for a minute and say, oh, okay, I guess that's set then. It's meant to drive people, or you could say expose people to our debates as a whole. In other words, to get more information. So do want to let you know about that. And with that, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your openings. The table is set. Let's get to the main course. Gentlemen, the floor is all yours for open dialogue.
Quick question. So on this, so for example, you're talking here. Man, where did it go? I had it written down. No, it's fine. What are you gonna say?
Oh, nothing. I was just gonna say nothing. Go ahead.
So you had mentioned that I guess some of the problem here is like Arabic translation, and I think you even had like a conversation with Muhammad Hijab on this, where Muhammad Hijab essentially said like if the interpretation can be made, the Arabic word can be, because a lot of Arabic words have multiple meanings, can fit with science and is correctly used that way. And there's even like precedent of people who are doing like tafsirs or exegesis on this. Why is there like any problems, I guess? Like, because a lot of what you said, to be honest, is like there's been like refutations on YouTube like done on it.
It doesn't really matter if there are refutations of it or not. I mean, we are sitting here discussing whether the Quran is scientifically accurate or not, and we can go back to the Quran, look at all the things it says. I haven't seen any refutations so far by Muslim apologists or scholars which completely explain these giant errors away. It's not a translation issue. There is no translation problem in any of these things that I've provided. Even the verses that I've put on the screen are all taken from Sahih International, as far as I remember, maybe with some exceptions, which is, by the way, a highly respected and certified translation of the Quran. And none of this is, the translations are not disputed. They are mostly vastly accepted. If there is a specific verse, a specific translation, a specific issue that you have, please bring it up and we can discuss it.
Well, yeah. So for example, one example would be that you implied in your video and like scientific mistakes of the Quran, like that this Quran is saying that the earth is flat. And it's like there's a bunch of quotes where it's saying that we've rolled out or smoothed out the earth. But with the word it's specifically using is implied that you're wrapping it around something that would be spherical. And then even like Ibn Tamir, who's a literalist, he literally does think the Quran has any metaphor, has actually argued that the world is round based off the Quran. So it's weird that you're implying that the Quran says the earth is flat to push a narrative, and then you have Ibn Tamir saying that a literalist saying that it's round based off the Quran.
Well, first of all, I don't remember bringing it up today. So during our debate, I didn't ever mention that the Quran describes the earth literally as flat. That might be something that I referenced within a broader context, by bringing together a lot of evidences in a different video, but today I haven't done that. If we want to reference Ibn Taymiyyah, who is a very late Islamic scholar, relatively speaking, I could go back to other Islamic scholars who have argued that the earth is flat. I mean, a contemporary of almost contemporaries are the Jalalain, who said that the earth is definitely flat. And I mean, in their tafsir, the two Jalals, they say that it is the opinion of the scholars that the earth is flat, whereas the opinion of the astronomers is that the earth is round, and that is false, although this does not go against the fundamentals of the faith. That's what they argued, for example. Why don't we accept their view and instead go to Ibn Taymiyyah, just because Ibn Taymiyyah's view agreed with those who thought the earth was spherical, which they adopted from the cultures they conquered, by the way.
Well, but that's the Quran literally tells you to go and investigate the universe, that the earth, and the earth and the world that was created through Allah's power. So when we're doing that and we're rereading the Quran, I mean, there should be no problem with updating our knowledge.
Then why does the Quran make clear claims and statements about the world around us, which are obviously false?
Well, for example, you never reference the like the issue with ants and bees and stuff. Like, you always go immediately to something that is.
Do you want me to reference them? Do you want me to reference them? I think they are ridiculous. So
how is it ridiculous that, so did Muhammad back then?
You mentioned ants talking, for example.
Spiders are female.
What, spiders are female? Okay, what do you
spiders are female, ants are female, and bees are female, right?
Okay. Can you very briefly mention what exactly you based this idea on, that they knew that they are female?
So it's using the specific female word or female, how in Arabic you can use a gendered language, right? So you can use a male or female. Yeah. So it's using the female version of it.
Okay, fantastic. I want to ask you a question. The Quran refers to the moon as a female and to the sun primarily as a male. And it even uses, the he and she in the he for the sun in the Arabic. Although it could refer to them differently. Why does it do that? Does it mean that the moon is female and the sun is male?
I mean, that's probably just allegorical. I mean, it's just saying.
So that is allegorical, but the other is not. Why?
No.
Why?
Because it's saying that the female ants work. And it's true. It's literally true. I mean, you have nothing to say against that.
Do you want me to? This is ridiculous. So, in one case,
it's not ridiculous to me.
In one case, when it doesn't fit the narrative, you say it's just allegorical. In the other case, when it does fit the narrative, you're like, "Oh, look, this is a miracle."
The Quran literally states that, though.
What does it state?
The Quran states that some things are allegorical and some things are literal.
And you can take as allegorical and as literal whatever you want based on what.
It's not whatever I want. It's people will research into this and look into this.
I think the case has already been closed here, to be honest. So you talked about ants communicating. You said that the Prophet Muhammad knew that ants can talk or communicate. What is actually happening in the Quran is that the Quran mentions Solomon interacting with ants, or Solomon coming, and one ant exclaims to the other and says, quick, go in hiding, because Solomon is coming. So what is actually happening here is that the Quran is not mentioning that ants communicate with each other. It literally describes the ants speaking words such as, that guy is coming, come on guys, go hide, which is nowhere close to how ants in reality communicate. They don't really
so it's really weird that
they just give signals to each other.
much like other atheists, like whenever this stuff comes up with the Quran, they just purposely, literally do this with it. So if I say, "Hey, ants talk to each other," right, and we're in layman speech right now, okay, you would understand that I'm saying ants communicate, and then all of a sudden, like if they're poetically doing it in the Quran, you have a problem with it, and you're like, "Oh, it's wrong," because
if you
that's
came
what
and
you're
said to
doing.
me, if you came and said to me, the ants talk to each other, they say, "Hey, go to this place and do that," I would say, "Well, not really." I would say they only send each other certain signals and leave scents behind, which other ants then follow to get to a certain place. To say the ants talk to each other and say, "Hey, Solomon is coming, and go into hiding, go this and this and that place," that is just a mythical, rather ignorant understanding of how ants could communicate. And I don't have an issue with this. I don't see that as a huge scientific mistake, because it's just one of those ideas. Maybe in the Islamic understanding, ants can actually somehow, talk to each other, but we can never know this. But there is no miracle in this, because this is not something that we have verified through science. There is no such thing.
Okay, what about the fact that, so same thing, so with like the female spiders, they're the ones who produce the houses, right? So that the a web isn't literally a house, right? But would you do the same thing there? Then you're like, "Oh, it's not a house," like
No,
what
I
is
already
wrong there for?
we already talked about this. We already talked about the female and male thing. I asked you a question about the sun and the moon, and you said that that is somehow, it is not a miracle. There somehow it is allegorical. I mean that case is already long gone. It's long closed. I don't have. You mentioned another thing. You began your whole speech, your whole opening speech with, for example, that the Quran has been praised by many Muslims and non-Muslims alike for its scientific accuracies and all of that. I just want to ask you, which non-Muslims have actually praised the Quran based on its scientific accuracy?
There was There was two people in like the field of embryology, but I don't remember exactly the names right now. So
I will tell you three: Maurice Bouquet, Keith Moore, and Gary Miller. Right, those are the people you think of.
there's those three, and there's like some French name.
Okay, Maurice Bouquet. Yeah, you're thinking of these because every single Muslim says, even non-Muslims praise the Quran for its scientific accuracy, and all that everybody ever mentions are these people, who, by the way, happened to make statements about the Quran while they were, working. Especially Maurice Bouquet, he was being paid, as far as I remember, if it wasn't him, by Saudi Arabian authorities in order to solidify the idea that the Quran is actually scientifically sound. Keith Moore also had a similar connection. Even somebody, there was this guy called the Rationalizer. He had interviews with some of these people who made positive statements about the Quran, and they openly said later on, years later, that that was just a phase for business back then, and they have nothing to do with it anymore. They don't want to talk about it. So aside from these people who, let alone the fact that this is a complete appeal to authority, aside from those people, nobody has ever actually analyzed the Quran and said, "Hey, look, this is so scientifically accurate." Otherwise, where in the world is the Quran used as a source for science? Nowhere. What do we take from the Quran and say, "Look, the Quran describes this scientifically accurately. It has helped us understand something"? Nothing.
Okay, I mean, I would not agree because obviously, tons of Muslim, after the Islamic Golden Age, like using the Quran and developing the new modern scientific method, like the whole new modern science enterprise is built on a Muslim. So to say that Islam and the Quran isn't contributing at all, when essentially Islam like revitalized philosophy, arts, engineering, so many practices, and you're just going to discredit it and say, "Oh no, nothing to do with Muslims and the Quran." So
when we talk about the Industrial Revolution, when we talk about the printing press, all of these things, do you say that these things were all brought by Christianity, and we can thank Christianity for modern science, for the industrial?
Some of them could be, yeah.
These things.
Some of them could be, yes.
Okay, but that wouldn't be accurate. People don't do that. So, because these are things.
Why not?
That were not.
If Christianity was the inspiration for some of the people getting involved in it, then I don't see any problem with giving them the credit for that.
Well, To be fair, the printing press was driven by the Christian desire to spread the Bible, for example.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good kudos to Christians, guys.
It's a good thing. Here, the issue is when it comes to science, you're basing this whole idea that the Quran contributed, that Islam contributed to science, on the fact that scholars in the past, in a very distant past, actually researched and contributed to science, to be fair, when the Western world, for example, was engaged in a lot of useless things.
Yes. What happened after that?
Does that mean that Islam or the Quran actually contributed to this? Does it mean that is the source?
Yeah, if they're doing it for a religious reason, or they're doing it to investigate the earth based off the Quran and Islam, then yes.
Okay,
I don't see any problem with it. But
I already mentioned a phrase to you from. I already mentioned a phrase to you from the Tafsir of Jalalain, which says that the astronomers believe the Earth is round, while the Islamic scholars believe that the Earth is flat, and the Islamic scholars are correct.
Yeah, some of these scholars debated, and even at the same time, they came to different conclusions. So I don't see a problem with it. So one was just wrong.
Yeah, so I don't see how Islam contributes to this, because we have people who are who join Islam, cultures which Islam conquers, and in those cultures, people come out and research to find out stuff about the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Does that really mean that that this is the Quran's work? No. Again, the idea here is the Quran did not reveal anything new about the world. The people, based on their idea of finding out the truth, went out and researched and came to findings.
So I have another one. So Quran in 53, 45, 46, it talks about how sex is determined by the sperm.
Where does it say that?
Quran 53, 45, 46, it talks about how the sex is determined by the sperm.
It doesn't, but let's see. 53,
yeah,
45, you said. Let's look at the source, right? He creates 45. 45, and he creates two mates, the male and female, from a sperm drop that is emitted.
Yeah.
How in the world does this say that the sperm decides?
So then someone has to investigate it, and they determine it's true. So
who investigated this and found out, oh, look, the Quran says that the sperm determines this?
I'm sorry, Arab and Muslim countries were being bombarded and colonized, so they didn't get a chance to do all the work for you. But that's not like an argument against Muslims or the Quran.
Well, we can
because
continue.
They didn't get to contribute as much yet.
We can continue crying here, but it wasn't me who actually made that claim. You just made that claim. You just said that that the Quran presents this idea, and this somehow gave people the true knowledge that
us as Muslims, I don't necessarily need to investigate it. I can just take it as fact. However,
the Quran doesn't say that
to inquire about the world, so I should do that if I have the opportunity. But again, if my country is being ruined and bombarded, bombed, colonized, like I don't have the opportunity.
That's very, very sad. Why is this happening?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so sad.
I'm not trying to cry about it. I'm just saying.
That's why we cannot. That's why we cannot find out. Please, let's leave this whole demagoguery aside. We all know very well how Muslims treat each other in Muslim countries and how they treat non-Muslims in Muslim countries. If you want to debate that, we can have that.
You got some trauma about that.
We can have that. We all know about your Muslim apologists and scholars who say that people like us should be killed and we are pigs and
never said that.
All that. Well, the Quran says it, and your apologists say that too. But back to your whole claim of Quran 53, verse 45 and 46, it says he created two mates, the male and female, from a sperm drop when it is emitted. None of this indicates that the sperm actually determines the sex here. It just says that the sperm, from sperm, God creates, or Allah creates, humans, male and female. Is anywhere in this statement the knowledge found that the sperm is what determines the sex, if they will be male or female? No. Just logically speaking, just looking at this at the wording here, there is no such thing. You are just reading into it.
Okay. I mean, there's plenty of people who did talk about this, so that it could infer that. So, and then it came out to be true. So, much like a lot of these, there's been multiple interpretations. I mean, in a way, the problem for you would be that there's going to be, and there has always been, multiple interpretations from Quranic scholars on this since 1400 years ago, trying to explain the possible meanings of these verses. And every verse in the Quran can be interpreted in a certain amount of ways. There's a scope, there's a range, okay? But it doesn't necessarily, like, you interpreting it in a backwards way to try and disprove the Quran doesn't disprove the Quran.
All right, then let's get to the things that I mentioned here. I mean, I put so many things here on the screen and also, talked about them and read them. If you want to talk about interpretations, let's talk about it. I said that the Quran says the missiles were created as protection against rebellious devils who try to ascend and steal knowledge from the high assembly of Allah and the angels. How exactly do you interpret this differently?
So this came up with the debate with Matt, and this is a supernatural event it's describing. So you're making a claim on something that is metaphysical. So it can't be scientific. It's not scientific. It's a mistake on your part.
Okay, Muhammad clearly mentions in the authentic hadith that when they see a shooting star, he mentions that this is devils trying to snatch secret knowledge from the heavens and bring it to the soothsayers, and shooting stars were made to shoot those devils. Why is Muhammad making this explanation? And if this is talking about something which we cannot observe, why is the Quran talking about stars in this case and saying that stars were created to shoot at rebellious devils? Why is it there? Are stars thrown at rebellious devils in a metaphysical, metaphorical, unverifiable way, or not?
Yeah, so I mean, again, this has been talked about, but so there's stars, they're called lamps that emit light. You're using the word stars, but they're called lamps, which have been adored and are missiles to stone the devils with. So they're a beautification of the nearest heavens to be thrown at devils, and aligns with people, stars that can be guided. So a lot of people have interpreted it to be allegorical. So,
well, it's a very futile attempt. I have seen people who have interpreted it so. Mohammed Hijab, you mentioned earlier, he said this is something we just cannot verify. And, what are you going to do? That was his explanation. That was his way out of it, because there is no real way out of it. It talks clearly about stars which are in the sky at night to beautify the heavens. And some of those stars, which are not small things, they're huge objects like our sun, which is a star, are supposedly thrown at rebellious devils who try to go up there. How in the world does this make sense?
Yeah, just using the word adorn just means that it's pretty or beautiful. Like, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily referencing its size. So I don't see a problem with using.
What does it have to do with anything?
That you made a problem with it. You said, "Oh, stars are big."
Okay, I'm saying it clearly refers to stars. Does it refer to anything else here? It's
There's people who interpret it as meteors too. So
okay, it says he made those stars or those lamps in the sky.
The word's lamps, not stars.
To beautify it is clearly talking about that. It's talking about the same thing in the hadiths and throughout the Quran. And some of them were made to be thrown at rebellious devils. Are stars in any way thrown at rebellious devils? Okay, you say no, and it's so absurd to you that you can't get out of it. So you resort to metaphysical things. But let's say it refers to meteors. Are meteors thrown at rebellious devils? Do you think that's what's happening?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so we have rocks out there, right? Mm-hmm. Rocks out there in space, which, by the way, are not lights and are not out there to beautify the heaven. So you have to invalidate that part entirely. That already doesn't make sense. You cannot see those rocks in the sky. You only see them because they enter the atmosphere and through friction light up, burn up, and become visible for a very brief time until they are pulverized or annihilated or partly fall down onto the ground. Does that sound like these things are up there as beautification of the sky and they are thrown at rebellious devils at some point? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I've already answered it.
Thank
so
you.
It can be allegorical. So
wonderful. Thank you for the answer.
You know, next.
You mentioned that the Quran accurately describes its. Is this a joke? I mean, you're not trolling, right? Because it's pretty terrible so far. The Quran describes that Allah turns the sperm into a blood clot during the embryonic phase. It never turns into a blood clot at any phase. There's nothing in there that can be described as a blood clot. So I would say that's a completely wrong description of what's really
Yeah, I think you did a video of this and you literally said that it turns into blood, which is like a incorrect translation of it. But you do that on your videos a lot. So
okay, so it was just me who incorrectly said that this is
because it's saying
a
an
blood clot.
alaka, a leech.
Okay, and what is that?
Yeah, and people have said
leech.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so you would describe that as a leech, a sperm drops, and
not the sperm.
The sperm itself. That's what it says. The sperm is then turned into this clot.
No, you're purposely. Are you trolling now?
What are you talking about?
Because that's not how the
did I do it wrong? Let's see. Let's bring this up. So Allah turns sperm into something, right? Isn't that how it goes? I'm pretty sure you know what I'm referring to.
We placed a sperm drop in firm lodging, okay, and then we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot.
Okay, isn't that what I just said?
Into a lump, and we made the lump. No, you said how is the sperm a leech?
I just said that.
The leech part is not a reference to the sperm.
Didn't I just say that the sperm is turned into that? Isn't that what I just said?
No, okay. Unless I misheard
maybe I misspoke. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's what I just said. I'm pretty sure I just said that the sperm is turned into that. But is there any point in embryology where something looks like a clinging clot or a leech, or where it acts like it? There simply is no such thing. That doesn't come in any way close to what is happening during any of those stages.
Yeah, embryo at 24. You haven't seen any of like the photos or anything? I mean, am I allowed to show my screen?
Go ahead.
Like there's literally memes on this. I mean, I don't know how he's not. Can I do them, James?
Oh yeah, we're ready for you.
Okay.
You have to press the green share button.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
Yeah, so a leech or a bloodsucker, embryo 24 to 25 days. They literally talk about it, and they have it right here. So, and then Mohammed Jabba literally has a video on this too. I mean, most of what he said can be viewed. So.
That's it? That's all you wanted to do? Okay. Yeah. So
I'm saying it doesn't look like one, and to me it looks like one. So sorry.
You might say there's a picture. You might also say that the sperm looks like a leech. Why not? You could say that. I mean, if you have ever seen illustrations of how a sperm goes into the woman body, and fertilizes, it looks like the sperms are little leeches that go and attach themselves, to the eggs and to the egg and it looks like leeches. So that could mean, if the Quran said,
yeah, in your twisted interpretation, it look like that. Sure, yeah, whatever you want. Ravon.
I mean, if that looks like a leech to you, then this does too. It could say, if the Quran said, and we made you as sperms, which are leeches or clinging things.
I guess
you could also say,
that is. If people want to learn about Islam, really, we should just be going to you so you can grift more. Yeah.
No, I'm pointing out what the Quran says and how it sounds ridiculous. I mean, here you are presenting an even more ridiculous. I mean, you are making my case for me, to be honest. But
sure.
It's funny you mentioned this. The Quran actually describes that Allah creates the human as a drop of sperm, and that drop goes into the mother and is then turned into a clinging clot, and so on. What it looks like, the Quran has an understanding of how humans develop, which is in line with very primitive ideas of of the entire process. It looks
Yeah,
like it
but earlier
describes
you said he was
sperm.
just a dumb warlord, so I don't know how this dumb warlord knew that.
People
Per your
long be-
phrasing, you know.
people long before Muhammad thought that humans are sperm. Do you think that you were at some point a drop of sperm?
Yeah, everyone was. What's wrong
No,
with that?
no, it's not. That's scientifically false. That's a myth.
That that we're all sperm, we were all one sperm?
You were not once a drop of sperm. A drop of sperm carries only a part of what is needed. Like, I mean, you know how
Yeah, of course.
chromosomes
It's
come
a
together,
mixture.
right?
It's a mixture of
It
parts.
goes into it
Yeah,
fertilizes the
a
woman.
female's required, Ravon. I know how
Yeah.
sex works. So
Yes, yeah. So it is
Okay, cool, thank you.
the sperm actually fertilizes
Yes, of
the
course.
woman, and from there the human begins developing. That little drop of a sperm is not a human. You were never that little drop of sperm. That is only something that fertilized the woman, which then began creating what later came to be a human. That is how it really works. That is how the real science is. If you want to go after science, if you want to look at how science really works, we can look at that and determine that the Quran is entirely ignorant, full of crap.
Okay.
It has an understanding of
You did this in your video. You
birth
did this
as
in your
people
video
did back
too.
then.
You said that, oh, the Quran only mentions sperm, right? It doesn't mention like the female's eggs. Okay, but it literally says that you come from a mixture of fluids, which implies that it takes two to tango, Rivion. I mean, I don't know about you, but if you wanted to procreate, it takes a female. So
yeah, very, very, very interesting. How could somebody in the 7th century have known that a male has fluids and the woman also has fluids when they interact with each other, and they somehow
you could say this is a
make something
scientific
together.
miracle. That's fine, sure.
Yeah.
But then you said it was a
Fantastic.
mistake though. So somehow it's just, oh, it's a mistake. Oh, it's not a mistake, but it's actually just not miraculous.
You don't get the point.
Any-
You don't get the point here. You were never at one point in your at one point in time a drop of sperm. That is simply not true. That is an ignorant, mythical understanding of the entire process. And the Quran is merely repeating
referencing our humble
what people
beginnings.
in the past thought. Because the Quran is ignorant, because the Quran is a product of human beings in their time who had an ignorant understanding of the world around us. I mean, you are completely ignoring all the other stuff that has been brought to the table here today.
Yeah, so you mentioned that
the
sky,
the sun, and everything.
yeah, sky, right? I get it. So in one of your videos, and as well earlier, you said, for example, like you have the protective layer comment, and then you have a comment on like sky is a solid object. So how did Muhammad travel through the sky if the sky was a solid object? And then on the protective layer thing, so there's an interesting conversation to be had there. So like, for example, are condoms protective?
Condoms protect.
Yeah, so they aren't 100%, protective, for example, just like the sky isn't always protective of us and meteors can get through, but it doesn't mean it's not protection. So how does this disprove the Quran?
Okay, does the Quran say that the sky is protected, or does it say that the sky is a protection?
Yeah, it's a protection, yeah.
It says that the sky is protected.
A protective layer, yeah.
It says it is a protected layer.
Yeah, it's a protective layer.
It says it is a protected layer, not a protective layer.
Okay.
Or it is a protected ceiling. Sorry, a solid protected ceiling. If you want to correct me here, please go ahead, but I'm pretty sure it says that it's a protected ceiling, not a protective layer or anything like that. And that is, again, I'm sorry, completely inaccurate.
Okay. Yeah, it's not incorrect. So I just asked you, are condoms protective or not?
Yeah, which has nothing to do with the actual question because
it does.
Because those are two different things.
Okay, so Kenny Bomer and I also referenced this in our prior debates, right? We said that the sky is a protective layer, right? Okay, and that it does. There's literal NASA scientists as well, and a bunch of other people. They've confirmed that the sky protects the Earth, right, from meteors and all sorts of problems, right, as well as radiation, heat waves, things like that. Okay, so that is a protective layer. You went on and you've gone on prior to say that it is not protected because a meteor could get through. But that's the same, to use an analogy, a condom, right? If you wore a condom and it protects you 99% of the time, and then one time it didn't, no one would go around saying, oh, condoms aren't protected.
Okay, I have bad news for you, Hussein, here. You keep saying that the Quran says the sky is a protective ceiling.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that. In
Yeah, it
Quran,
says
chapter
it's
21,
a
verse
protected
32.
ceiling, and yet they turn away from our wonders. It's a
Yeah.
protective roof, and a bunch of people have used this and interpreted this in the past to say that it's a protective layer. But again, you want to say, oh, it doesn't say that.
Okay, it says that the ceiling.
Okay, audience, guys,
it says. Hey, listen. It says the sky is a protected ceiling. Word for word. Does that mean to you the sky is a protective ceiling? So, as in the sky protects us from something.
Mm-hmm.
Are those two things the same thing?
Yeah. We made the sky a protective ceiling, and yet they turn away.
Now go ahead and appeal to the audience once again. He thinks protected.
Yeah, because I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to you. You've already made up your mind, so why would I try?
Well, okay.
You've been doing this for how many years?
Everybody, judge the guy who just said that the sky is a that the sky is a protected ceiling means it is a protective layer. Makes no sense. The two things have nothing to do with each other at all. The Quran literally says that the sky is a ceiling, which Allah built a building which Allah built above the sky. It has no rifts, no cracks, and Allah holds it up so it doesn't fall down, which is already an idiotic description. Nothing holds it up. Nothing needs to hold it up. It is, if anything, held together through gravity. And it is not a ceiling. It is not an object. It is also not protected. It protects us from a lot of things, which the Quran never references and never says. Those are entirely different things. Don't conflate them with each other. The Quran is scientifically ignorant about this.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, well, sure.
So ignorant. I mean, it literally claims it, but okay.
Well, if you don't understand words here, then I just don't know what to tell you. Furthermore, it says that the sun has a resting place. I also presented the whole perspective on this from Muhammad himself, who says that that the sun actually goes somewhere at night and prays to Allah, and then asks to rise again, and Allah gives. What do you say about that whole fable?
Sun, what?
Do you not hear what I just said? The sun travels somewhere to its resting place, or goes and worships under the throne of Allah and asks for permission to rise again. And Allah is like, yeah, go ahead, rise. And then one day it says, Allah, can I rise now? And it says, no, go back where you came from. And then it rises from the west. As the Quran describes, it goes to a resting place. What do you think about that whole issue?
Yeah, what's the problem with that? It's allegorical. I mean, people say now that the sun sets, right? So is anyone who says the sun sets, is that a problem then to you?
No, because we are describing something that we observe here. If somebody came and said to me,
okay, and that's the exact same logic.
No, it's not. If somebody came and said to me,
there's tafsirs on this where they talk about how this is from the perspective of human beings viewing the sun.
All right. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, do you know where the sun goes? And I'm like, it doesn't go anywhere. And they say, no, it actually travels to a resting place and it worships under the throne of Allah. And in the morning, it asks to rise again, and Allah gives it permission to rise.
Whoa, it's a story.
What is that? What kind of a story is that? Right. What's the point of the story?
This is not a scientific mistake. I mean, you're literally trying to say that this. I love it.
It is a scientific mistake.
Again, this goes back to it's literal here, but not literal here for you.
It is literal.
You're interpreting. How is it literal?
Muhammad literally describes that the sun goes somewhere. The Quran literally describes that the sun goes somewhere, which Muhammad further expands on.
How in the world?
What exactly is the point of the story? Tell me. Go ahead.
In which one? The prostration?
No, the sun traveling to a resting place and asking Allah for permission to rise again every morning, and one day Allah will say, no, go back, and it goes and rises from it. What's the point of that story?
Yeah, so again, many people have said that it fits the heliocentric model. They've talked about this. They said that when it's rising, it's inclining away from their cave on the right, and when it sets, passing away from them on the left. So you can talk about it where it says, like NASA uses terms. So we say the sun is set, and when the day begins, we say the sun is risen. So it's not uncommon to, again, when you're explaining to people in your time period, to explain to them in things that they use. And it's the same thing. Oh, okay. When the sun, instead of saying the sun has risen, they're saying that like they're getting up to pray. So it's the same thing.
Everybody, if you have understood what I actually said, which Hussein did not understand, please say I understand in the chat. Thank you. You just don't get the point of what's actually happening here. It's very, very painful, willful ignorance on your behalf. It's just it's hard to argue with you. I guess we're.
I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, so.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So what's that's it. So we have concluded the Quran is ignorant, doesn't make much sense. Hussein doesn't have much to offer. I expected more. I'm quite disappointed, to be honest.
I mean, the fact is, so you're saying, oh, it's not a protective layer, right? But in reality, it does offer protection. I mean, this has been confirmed. You can go watch or read into it how the sky actually does, like our layer protects us from heat waves, things like that. So saying the sky is a protective canopy or a protective layer, like in multiple Quranic quotes, I mean, to me, that seems like a scientific miracle. But apparently to him, it's not good enough. He tries to phrase that the sky is a solid object in other videos, and in here, but there's nowhere that doesn't make sense, because how was it solid if Muhammad went up through the sky? I mean, a lot of this is, again, just his tactic of purposely taking things literally or out of context, or using the wrong, literally the wrong Arabic words. So
after everything, you have missed the point. In fact, multiple points again, and demonstrated that again. I don't understand why that is, but I'm sorry, I just don't think I can take you seriously here. You are not engaging with actual arguments. You're not engaging with anything I said. You're not honestly discussing the actual topic, instead going to these rants on what I'm actually trying to do, which has nothing to do with our topic here. I think we are.
Well, you said the sky has no cracks, and no one ever claimed the sky was solid. Like you say that, but where in the Quran is it implying that the sky is solid? That's your interpretation. You are projecting. So me calling that out is not me being dishonest or not engaging. That's literally what you're doing. You said, "Oh, the sky has no cracks," but nowhere in the Quran does it claim that. So I don't see how
the Quran says. The Quran says the sky has no rifts. That's what the Quran says, implying that it could have rifts. The Quran says that Allah made the heavens without pillars that you can see. Allah holds up the sky without things that you can see. He made the sky a ceiling, a protected ceiling, a canopy, and he will fold up the ceiling one day. I brought this up, all of it. It says Allah will roll up the heavens as a scroll. All of this implies that the sky is an actual thing, an object, which is simply not true.
Okay, the heavens are a thing, right? They're a protective layer. So it doesn't mean that they're solid, though. And they could crack. That's not a problem.
No, they could. They could. I mean, there could be an imbalance or anything, but you wouldn't see a crack. When the Quran clearly describes, it says, "Do you see a rift?" That doesn't make any sense. That is already, the implication there is already that the ceiling is something perfectly built, which has no crack, no rift in it. So it says, "Look, do you see a rift?" People thought it is a ceiling. That's why people thought of it as the firmament above the earth. What it really is that that gravity pulls the atmosphere, holds the atmosphere together. And the atmosphere above us, when the sun shines upon it, makes I'm explaining this in very primitive ways right now. The atmosphere lets through the sun rays, which through the atmosphere begin looking differently, and the atmosphere appears blue to us, and it appears like there is a vault above us, but there's actually nothing. That is what it is. It's all atmosphere. It's all gas. There is no roof. There is no ceiling. There is no thing that needs to be held up, which is already a completely wrong description. It needs to be held down, if anything. there is nothing that can be folded up. There is nothing that can fall. All of this is simply nonsensical and a primitive understanding of the sky. So I don't think you can argue this topic, but you need to read more on this stuff.
Okay, I don't see how you can say so. To describe the sky as a canopy is wrong. So,
Of everything that I have just said, that's what you pick.
no, I'm just saying that that's one thing. So that, or saying that it's a ceiling, it is literally above us. Again, when we're talking about someone revealing in the Quran, right, to people of the time, there's plenty of things where they are using and referencing things within the time period. So that isn't a problem at all to reference a canopy or a ceiling.
Okay.
It's to say it's above you.
Okay. Thanks. I don't know what else to say. It's like I'm not getting through anything here. It's entirely empty.
Do you guys want to go to your closing statements?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
You
Go
got
ahead.
it. We are going to go into those closing statements. Since Hussein went first, we'll start with his. We have the Q&A right after, folks. So if you happen to have a question, feel free to fire it in with the old super chat. Those go to the top of the list. Otherwise, you can tag me with @ModernDayDebate, and we'll read those too, assuming we got time. We want to say a huge thanks to both of our speakers. AP, because as I mentioned, given that AP was late, he was planning on washing his tights tonight. And I said, AP, would you come out for the debate, please? And they said, okay, I can take a break. And Hussein, what temperature is it there right now in Arizona?
It is so it's so hot, and I have no AC. So I mean, it's only 94 degrees here, but I mean, it probably inside because I don't have AC. It's like 100, 110 maybe.
Thank
I'm
you
not
for
sure.
toughing
I'd
it
have to-
out with us. And we are going to go into that closing. Hussein, the floor is all yours.
Yeah. So I mean, as I mentioned, you guys can check a lot of these things out. There's a lot of scientific facts within the Quran, and the Quran does tell Muslims to investigate the world and confirm these things. So, for example, when it talks about ants and spiders and bees, I mean, these aren't things really that Rivan even addressed. When it talks about embryology, it does mention these stages. And alaka means leech. It's been accepted as that and a suspended thing. So there's nothing wrong there. It's scientifically accurate. When we talk about cosmology, there's gravitational waves as well. When it talks about that, there's plenty of other things as well, like mountains, roots, and mountains do have roots. You can definitely look into that as well. There's things like even layman kind of things, like that milk comes out and it's pure, that you can reference. So pretty much there's plenty of facts that reflect reality. And as much as to atheists and Christians who want to essentially misinterpret things, there's plenty of apologetics that you can look into explaining why these are essentially the wrong interpretations, or they're purposely using the wrong words. So
Thank you very much for that closing. We'll kick it over to AP for his closing as well.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks James again for arranging this. I expected a little bit more today. I don't think this debate has actually brought anything of value to the discussion, to be very honest. But I think we have just established once again that the Quran is not very easy to defend, because it is simply a book that came into existence in a time of ignorance by people who were ignorant about the world around us. And I haven't even come to, Hussein just mentioned a few things that I forgot to mention earlier, or that I could have gone into even further. Like the whole gravitational waves issue is entirely made up. The Quran says no such thing. It talks about blasts during on the Day of Judgment. Nothing there indicates gravity or gravitational waves. That's completely reading into it. Mountains don't have roots. Some mountains have buoyant things that that they describe as roots, which are not actually really roots in the strictest sense, like plants, for example. And that's not true for all mountains. The Quran says mountains were placed firmly into the earth, which is not what happens. Mountains are part of the ground that we walk on, which clashes into each other and elevates each other and itself, whereby mountains form. That is also a huge scientific mistake, which I mentioned in my scientific mistakes demonstrations, and so on. I mean, we can talk about this forever. Unfortunately, Hussein did not engage with the actual topic and with the things I brought up, and his defense of certain scientific mistakes in the Quran and his explanation of scientific miracles in the Quran, I can't take them seriously. I don't know. I don't know how else to say this without being too condescending here. For which, by the way, I shouldn't have any regard, considering that he already started with insults from the very beginning. But I think, yeah, it's been established the Quran is scientifically entirely false. If anyone wants to have a discussion and debate on this in a serious manner to be more convincing, please engage with it. Please engage with me. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that closing. And in fact, I agree. I want to say, folks, in the live chat right now, I am putting my email. If you happen to be a Muslim debater and you're like, hey, I'd be willing to come on and make the case for Islam, or maybe you want to in some way attack atheism or Christianity, whatever it is, let us know. I'm going to put my email, like I said, in the chat right now. We always want to give people a chance to make their case to the world, and we're going to give them a fair platform to do it on. So with that, we're going to jump into the Q&A. Thank you very much for all of your questions. And like I said, I pinned my email to the top of the chat right now. So this first question coming in from Mojo says, a question to Apostate Prophet. I am an ex-Muslim. Says, how do you interpret the embryology being called a leech and sounds accurate, even if almost everything is unscientific?
I wouldn't say that it is considered that it is close to accurate. First of all, thanks for the question. I mean, it says a clinging clot or a clot, something like that, which is not a miraculous statement in that time. People had a much more accurate description and understanding of embryology long before Muhammad's time in Greece, in China, in surrounding cultures which were far advanced beyond the Muslim Arabs of the 7th century. I don't think that there's anything remarkable about this at all.
You got it. We'll jump to the next question. And folks, want to remind you, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. We have plenty more debates coming up in the future. You don't want to miss out on those. And this one comes in from Malavia. Thanks very much. Says, hey, James. Hey, Hussein. It was nice to meet you at DebateCon 3.1. AP, you're not here yet, but I hope to meet you in the future, too. That was an early one. This one, thanks very much. Appreciate that, Malavia. Lost Fan says, no question, just saying I love. Oh, we read that one at the very start. We got that. We got you covered, Lost Fan. ES1002 says, AP, moon error in Quran, chapter 10, verse 5.
That's the one that talks about the sun being a light and the moon is also a light. I included that in the past as scientifically inaccurate, but I'm not entirely very, very strong on that whole point. I mean, the Quran describes the sun as a bright light and the moon as a light, where the moon is just an object that reflects light from the sun and therefore appears shiny. I don't know if you want to take that as a scientific mistake or not. It's just, I don't think it's an incredibly strong one. But yeah, thanks.
You got it. Thank you very much. Sid Dave says, Quran also... Oh, wait. By the way, Hussein, if you wanted to respond to that, I want to give you a chance to give a response if you'd like to. So if I roll through these too fast, feel free to interject.
I'm not sure about that one. I haven't looked into it, so...
You got it. Sid Dave says, Quran also says that horses, donkeys were made by Allah for humans to ride and decorate. How smart by Allah, they say. They say probably never anticipated cars and planes.
I mean, that's probably for me. And again, this is talking to the people at the time, so I don't understand how that is our own. But
This one coming in, we call it a dunk around here, dunking
Yeah,
on people.
excuse me.
This one from Milahan Philosopher's Corner says, members rule. Thanks for your support. We appreciate that. Lady Firebrand, thanks for your support. Says, suit appreciation. I got to give credit to Hussein. At the start, I had a navy blue. I said, I don't like this. He said, it's because it blends in with the background, James. You have to put on something different color. He was right. So anyway.
That was probably smart, yeah.
It's way better. I was like, oh my goodness. Hussein is like fashionista. I've got to say, Hussein, people have asked. They saw your debate with Matt Dillahunty on Modern Day Debate at DebateCon several weeks ago. They said, are you an emo Muslim? I hate to put you on the spot and make fun of you like this. Is there any truth to this?
I apparently I did not beat the emo Muslim allegation. So
is it just the hair? Is that folks?
I think it's just the hair, but I mean, I can't. This is just how my hair is. So I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I cut it shorter, right? And it's still so.
Well, I think it's tremendous. We're going to jump into the next one. Thanks very much for your question. XXWLZXX says, Islam says that semen, like not the travelers, but they said, is stored between backbone of man and the rib cage of women. Quran also says there are 7 earths. Some tafsirs, let me know if I pronounce that right, say they are flat, with a whale being under the last flat earth.
So the whale thing's actually a fabricated hadith. So and then what was it? The first one, he said the semen between the backbone and the ribs. Let me have this actually. So there's been like 3 ways of looking at this, even from like the original like debate about it. And so it's fluid, not sperm. It's and the semen vesicle is essentially between the backbone and the ribs. And then they talk about that. So it's using it as a reference point. And someone else has also mentioned that essentially it's like saying our head is between our shoulders. Just because it's higher doesn't mean it's not between our shoulders. So that's another way to think about it too. So.
You got it. Thank you very much for this question coming in from XXWLZXX says, Quran also says Earth created before the universe.
Yeah, I brought that up. I brought that up in my opening speech. I think I referenced that very briefly, actually, where the Quran describes that the Earth was created, that there was nothing at first, only water. And Allah created the earth and made it, spread it out, and then he turned himself toward the sky and created it as 7 heavens and so on, which is very much in line with ancient Near Eastern mythological cosmology, with their understanding of how things came into existence, which is, of course, from our modern knowledge entirely wrong. But that's a long, long discussion.
I'll give you a chance to respond if you'd like, Hussein.
Yeah. I'm trying to find it because I had this written down.
While you're finding it, Mark Reed and Notion Slave, as well as Patty Q, thanks for your questions for the Q&A. I promise we're going to get to them. Just want to let you know I saw them, and we're moving on down through the list. But go ahead, Hussein.
I should have categorized these better. So the original word it's saying prepared. So the implication is that it's one. There's 2 ways of looking at it. So they said there's no chronological order, and they've talked about this in like original exegesis. And then the word is proportioned as 7 heavens. So meaning the heaven was already created before the earth, and then essentially they finalized the earth and heavens after. So it's not saying that the earth was created before, because the word's proportioned. So
okay, what it actually says is that Allah created the heavens and the heaven and the earth, and they were together one thing. Then he separated them, and then he made the earth, and then he turned himself toward the sky and made it as 7 heavens above, which, I mean, if you want to take it that way, again, implies very similar things and doesn't make much sense.
This one coming in from Unless, Hussein, if you have a quick rejoinder.
No, I mean, I literally just gave the answer. It's proportioned. So, in that there's no chronological. There's people who said there's no chronological order, and there's people that say that it does fit the chronological order correctly. So, there's been defenses on both. So,
We've got we've got a little Lipton iced tea. What are you drinking there, pal?
mango gold kombucha.
Wow.
It's not good. Another drink that's not good. Every time I stream with you,
So
I always end up getting a drink and it ends up not being good. James is cursing me.
very sad. Is like that new Soylent that everybody's going crazy for? Not that? Okay. This one
Actually,
coming
I-
in from ES1002 says Hussein does wife beating work to discipline them. That's just all they say is them. Go ahead.
Not scientifically relevant, I guess. And that would be, I mean, again, when they talk about, because I had this last time too, when they talk about striking a woman, it's like with a like a little stick thing, and it's for discipline, and it's like after going through all sorts of, like there's a process. You don't just resort to beating, and it's not literally beating. So, but again, I'm sure Vivian is gonna disagree. So.
Well, the Quran
Yeah,
doesn't say
it's-
anything about how it's supposed to be done. It doesn't give any instructions. It just says if you fear arrogance from the women, advise or reprimand them, and then as a second step, separate them in beds, and third, beat them. That's all it says. Literally, it doesn't give any further limitations or explanations. All kinds of different limitations on how it should be done are all based on interpretations of hadiths and teachings and other things. Whereas we have authentic reports in which the Muslim women are described as being, their skins are green from all the beatings. So.
You got it. Friendly reminder. Also, thanks so much for becoming a member. Reminiscence. Appreciate that support. Becoming a channel member. Also, though, as I mentioned, folks, moderndate@gmail.com is pinned at the top of the chat. We want everybody to have their spot at the table. And for years, I'm not exaggerating, we had nothing, it was pretty much nothing but atheist versus Christian. And we were like, hey, we want to make sure that it's very clear that we are happy to have our Muslim friends on to debate, on Modern Day Debate, just like our atheist and our Christian friends are welcome here. So you can find me there at moderndaydebate@gmail. What'd you say?
Hinduva people.
What's that?
I said you should get some Hinduva people.
We had Hare Krishnas. That's about as close as we got. It's pretty tough. It's very hard, as a side note, it's interesting. It's pretty tough to find Eastern religion defenders. It's almost like apologetics, as in the Christian community it's called. I think in the Muslim community it's called Dawah. Is Dawah, is it almost synonymous with apologetics?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Well,
I mean-
Dawah is actually preaching and spreading, missionary, while
Yeah, it's like
it's more equivalent to missionary.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So like evangelism is Dawah?
Yeah.
Oh,
pretty-
okay.
pretty
Gotcha.
much, but
But it seems like
They-
it's
they
like
do-
maybe mixed. But anyway, whatever it is, it's interesting. But it's also true. One thing a lot of people, I don't know if they notice, pardon me, let me just for 2 seconds, is that a lot of Eastern religion books actually don't make a lot of claims. Like, in other words, it's very abstract, even more abstract than, for example, I've read the Quran, I've read the Bible, and that's one thing I'm wondering if maybe that's part of why there are so few people, is that it's kind of very abstract, and you kind of would probably be like, well, I don't know, what does that even look like to debate that? But anyway,
yeah.
it isn't. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. It's a little bit more abstract. So
At least the little I've read. I haven't read like the whole Tipitaka or something, but I have read selections from Upanishads. And am I saying that right though? Anyway, XXWLZXX says early Islamic scholars interpreted all this stuff literally. It was not till much later that Muslims began interpreting this stuff metaphorically.
Yes. We have no early sources of Muslims, of the early Muslims going around and saying, oh, this is just metaphorical. The earth is actually not like this. And all. Early Muslims accepted the writings as they are. But the whale issue, for example, Hussein said that the hadiths are fabrications about that stuff. I agree that there are no hadiths which we can trace authentically back, but we have early tafsirs in which we find numerous references of the early Muslims actually believing that the earth is on the back of a whale, and the whale and Allah placed mountains on top of the earth because the whale moves and the earth shakes, and that's what causes earthquakes, and the mountains are supposed to hold it together and all of that. So the early Muslims had, of course, very, very absurd beliefs about the earth, and they took these things very literally. The whole idea that the earth is actually round and all of these things are just metaphorical came much later.
You got it? Go
as
ahead.
far as against that, I guess, is I don't know how they're getting that, because traditional scholars agree that some passages leave ideas implied or rather than stated. And then there's also the Quranic statement where it says we have verses that are clear and there are foundations of the book and others that are unspecific. So it literally is leaving room for esoteric interpretations. So
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. ASEAN Talks says, why can I explain to my child how suns set and rise, but Allah couldn't explain it to grown men? Maybe explain gravity or something.
That's a good point.
What have you got, Hussein? We'll give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, they did. I think they did explain that, how the sun sets and rises, so I don't see a problem with it. So, I mean, like, it's like the muddy spring thing there, where they go on about how the word wajada means anything from the five senses. That word has an implication of the five senses, so it's perspectives of the human beings viewing it. So, I don't see
Which
the
no
problem.
early Muslim scholar thought was just metaphorical or anything else, or perspective. Early
Okay.
Muslim scholars and thinkers thought it was literal. That idea came only later. But yeah, we had that.
You got it, and thank you very much for your question. Voice of Reason, good to see you again, says, everything accurate in miraculous and everything false is an allegory.
That's what I have seen today. Yeah. That's what Hussein does here. Everything that doesn't fit the agenda is just allegorical, can be interpreted differently, and everything that does fit it is like it's a miracle. That's very common, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, the Quran states that, and I don't have a problem with doing that. So I guess if you want to accuse me of doing what I'm doing in the church, I don't see how it's a problem now. If
It's
the Quran
very
really has a,
convenient. You know?
yeah.
Very
So,
convenient.
I mean, because you as an atheist and you can do the same thing. So which you've done in the past. So.
I don't. But yeah, good for you.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it, Mark Reed, good to see you, says, keep the debate going. After show on Mark Reed Atheism.
Hey,
And
Mark.
you guys know each other.
Yeah, well, I debated him on if Islam is oppressive to women.
That's right.
Right?
Okay.
Is the guy from New Zealand?
Yes.
Yeah,
A regular here. And so thank you very much for your support, Mark. If you email me that base link, I'll try to squeeze it into the what's it called? Description box. Long day. Patty Q says, what do you two make of the children of Ad? That's just AD. They say, and do you believe that their king was killed when a hurtling wind went into his mouth and out his rump?
We children of what? I think this is troll.
Yeah, I don't.
Is there a troll? Patty, how dare you? Yellow Banana says, how did Muhammad go to heaven to meet Allah in one night? It defies everything we know about E equals MC squared.
It was a dream.
And they say, and of all physics, unless he was magically teleported, which he wasn't, there's no way to explain it.
So explain this to me, Hussein. So what I see is Muhammad is actually, Hussein said he needs to use the restroom, right?
Go for
Well,
it, Hussein.
Yeah, am I allowed to go use the restroom right now?
Yeah, for sure. I can ask questions. I'll see if we have any for AP.
Yeah, ask him for Apostate.
Okay.
Cool.
Isa Martell actually does have a question for AP. This just came in, so fresh off the press. They say, can AP speak Arabic, recite, let me get closer, Fatiha, and last three surah?
What? Recite Fatiha? And what else? Where did I see that?
And they say, and last three surah.
Last three surah. Okay. Do I speak Arabic? I don't speak Arabic. I only I don't know, from studying, know plenty of words, sentence structure, which I studied and learned, and I don't know, from studying this whole stuff, it somehow comes. I can recite. Is this a challenge by Muslims, I guess, for me to recite something? Fatiha and the last three surah. Sure, yeah. Fatiha goes, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin Ameen. The last three, I completely forgot. Is that Ikhlas, Nas, and what's the other one? Falak? I don't know. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. And the other one I don't really remember. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر.
You got it.
Something like that. I don't. I don't know. I don't remember the whole thing. I forgot. It's been a lot of years. But if this is a challenge, then yeah, here you got it.
Juicy to say the least. I'm looking for any right now. I'm looking through the list on whether or not there are others for AP. I don't think that there is. Let's see. So in the meantime, I will say this. Okay, I'm caught up. Now I know where we are. Folks, as I mentioned, but I know that there's a lot of turnover during live streams because it's Friday night. People are having a good time. They've got their beverage, their Soylent, and they've got their precious TV dinners. Let me know if you know what movie that quote's from. And they're enjoying themselves. They're like, hey, I'll check out a little bit of this live stream. Like, yeah, okay. I got to tell you. Therefore, there are maybe, I don't know, hundreds of new people here at this point. Because I don't want to be redundant, but I got to tell you, folks, we are doing a shorts campaign. If you see a short and you're like, James, like that was clearly like one side had more time to speak and, you know, they looked like they dunked on the other person. I thought you were neutral. Is that we're like, hey, we're trying to do that to everybody equally. You really shouldn't even call it dunked on. It's just that they maybe got a little bit more time to speak or they had the last word. So it doesn't mean that, or I should say, if they're the dunker, not the dunk-e, is that if they got dunked on, it doesn't mean that they actually didn't have a response, for example. And that's the thing is a short is only 60 seconds. So we have to cut it off at 60 seconds at the most. And so if you see it and you're like, James, what the heck? It's like one of my favorite debaters, like you didn't give them a fair, you know, like it's like, well, we're not going to try to deceptively edit, but we have to edit where it's like, hey, they might not always get a chance to respond, and it might be like, ooh, it looks like they got baffled. It's like, well, the reason that we're putting these shorts out is so that people watch the whole debate, and then they can see that they do have a response or whatever it is, whatever. So I do want to let you guys know that. I just don't want people, I'm a little bit nervous, so I want to talk to the community about this. I don't want people to click on these shorts and be like, what the, you know, oh, it's like, that's clearly biased.
Just
you know,
do
like,
it. Let people fight. It's good.
Yeah.
So far, it's been good
Sports, so.
in terms of, like, I keep a track. We've only released 2 shorts so far. And so far, like, I haven't seen, like, any sort of exodus of subscribers. Because that was where I was like, so I'm like, okay, good. People know that we're not trying to, you know, we don't have an agenda with these shorts is what I'm saying. So we'll go to this next question.
Hussein, you missed it. I just recited the Quran here.
Oh, nice.
We totally missed it here.
I'll have to go back. You know.
I didn't recite.
I watched one of your videos, by the way, where you did recite the Quran, and it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. Excuse me.
No, it wasn't. I mean, what should I say?
Yeah. So I don't have to prove that I am indeed an ex-Muslim. You know, it's like I prayed 5 times a day and attended a lot of other things for many years, and this shouldn't even matter. Like this has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here. Yeah.
One last thing about the shorts. Haley, thanks for pointing out in chat. She said, hey, do you put the link for the original full debate in the shorts comments? Yes, we do. So I do want to say, like, it is like we really are wanting people to see the context of the short by clicking on those links. So thanks for saying that. And The Freak says, AP, what is more scientific than Surah 56? and verses 63 through 64.
56, 63, 64. I don't remember what that is about. I barely keep the numbers.
Oh, it's
I don't remember numbers.
considered what you sow. It is you who cause it to grow, or is it we who do so?
Which one?
It's saying, have you considered what you sow?
Okay.
Is it you who cause it to grow, or is it we who do so?
I don't even remember that. Have you seen that which you saw? Okay, is this supposed to be a joke or what is this? I don't know.
I don't know what they're implying.
Yeah.
Or
And
I
have you
thought
seen
like
that
reap
which
what
you
you sow
sow?
kind of thing, but I
Is it
don't
you
know
who
if they're.
makes it grow, or are we the grower? If he will, we could make debris, and you would remain in wonder. Okay, yeah, yeah, okay. In my opinion, primitive understanding of how things work. Maybe it's a joke. I don't know. Yeah.
This one from Mahmoud. Let me know if I'm saying it right. It says, Hussein, please explain Quran 36:36 and the existence of Aspidocellus neomexicanus.
Oh, yeah, this one,
Say,
everything in pairs. Yeah, so it's
say
not
which
everything.
has, well, just for anybody who doesn't know, they say which has one gender and many other species too. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So, I think this came up in the Matt debate too, but it's not saying everything in pairs. It's saying everything in complementary nature. So it's meaning more than that, and then it doesn't mean, it's not implying everything. So it uses the word kul, and that word, there's actually like a tafsir on that word and like a book on that word too, where it doesn't mean everything. So for example, in like another story, they say, oh, we destroy everything with wind, but the houses are left. So it's not literally everything. And I even mentioned this with Matt. Like if I say everyone in the room is white, like it doesn't literally mean everyone there was white. It's just a way of phrasing something. So
I would contest that. I think it's very clear from the wording, and as also Islamic scholars later understood, that it says all things we have created pairs. It is pairs, and I would think that you have to twist that in order to make sense of it, because it even refers to fruits and plants as pairs, which doesn't make sense. I mean, there especially, you can't really find the binary in much, let alone in everything. But yeah, it's I think that's a poor understanding of human of life and nature.
You got it. This one coming in from Aiden Waleed says, question for Hussein. Do you believe ants spoke? By the way, AP is the GOAT.
Oh, thank you.
do I think ants spoke in the story? Yes. What? Okay, and animals communicate. I don't understand the problem here.
I do.
You got it. This one from Yellow Banana. We get this one. They say, how did Muhammad go to heaven to meet Allah in one? We got that one.
No. We actually
no, we didn't because I went to the restroom. But I mean, I don't understand the thing here is like if you are religious, right?
Let me just for anybody who just tuned in. Let me just or to remind people too, because you guys are right now. Your brains are like at 100 miles an hour, and just in case anybody forgot, they say it defies everything we know about E equals MC squared if Muhammad did go to heaven in one night. They say unless he was magically teleported, which he wasn't, there is no way to explain it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, this would be like a supernatural event. So I mean, there's things within like the Christian Bible, Judaism, and Islam that are through the power of God, essentially, people are able to do the miraculous or supernatural. So that's how it happens, because through God's power, they're able to essentially defy these laws. So I don't see a problem here if I'm willing to accept that a God exists that's all powerful. So, but again, this is probably an atheist thinking this is a dunk. So
I honestly, I don't think that's a huge problem. I think if you believe that things happen in miraculous, mysterious ways, I think it would be all right to believe that Allah could make it so that Muhammad ascends to heaven and travels the heavens and all of that within just 1 second, while he experiences it as a lot of time. I think that's not a strange thing to believe in as a religious person. I don't think I can contest that. It's not the weirdest thing. The only thing that I would say about that is the reports say that Muhammad was in his bed, and then the angel came and washed his heart, and this horse came, or horse-like being came, and he was brought to heavens on its back and all of that, and he woke up and his bed was still warm, and to me that just sounds like a dream. It's like you dream and you think you had an extraordinary experience, but it's still a dream.
This one coming in from XXWLZZ says the whale is from Ibn Abbas, who is master of Quran. What does this mean?
It's the whole story about early Muslims believing that the earth is on the back of a whale is most prominently attributed by Islamic exegetes to Ibn Abbas, who is considered one of the most reliable, if not the most reliable, people in Muhammad's surrounding when it comes to knowledge of the Quran. But again, there are lots of issues with that whole idea.
This one
but
from...
it's of course questionable that Islamic scholars in the beginnings did attribute that whole thing to him.
You got it. Notion Slave strikes again, says, look up cosmic rays. Far away stars produce cosmic rays, which hit us every day. But our atmosphere protects us. So yes, stars do affect space travel, do move, and meteors are thrown on top of that here.
Apostate, I think that's for you.
Well, I don't think that's for me, is it? I don't know.
Well, the implication is he's saying that the sky is protecting us.
It is not. I mean, didn't that just imply that that the sky is not really entirely protecting us, because it's not really fully protecting us? But again, the whole point I made earlier about this was that the Quran's claim is that the sky is protected, not that the sky protects us. Those two are different things.
You got it. Thank you very much for your question. Mark Reed. Oh, we got that one? That's right. Mark, pardon me, I haven't checked my email yet if you did send the link. But after show at Mark Reed's channel. If you type Mark Reed into the chat or search bar. Bitter Truth says there's no organ between ribs and backbone. Hussein, can you show us or name that organ? You don't have to show us anything, but you can let us know. Let us know what organ.
Yeah. So the backbone of the ribs. So they've used the word to describe essentially the loins. So there's plenty of people who've used that word to describe loins, which is between the backbone of the ribs and where semen comes from. And then they talk about the semical vesicle, where the semen fluid comes from. So there's plenty of defenses. I mean, like Muhammad Hijab S3, what's his name? Hamza Tortis has another one. So, I mean, I don't know if I've already talked about that before, so I don't.
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it, E1002 says, Hussein, is that bottle full of camel pee? Is that one of your exotic drinks, Hussein?
No. This is a reference to the camel urine having healing properties. So, which it's funny that atheists or Western people will use this as like a dunk when Premarin is a medicine that currently is made and uses mare urine as a product in it. So,
Hussein, I want to tell you something. Would you drink a human's urine?
People have drink in dire situations. People have drank urine, yeah. So there's no problem.
But do you think drinking human urine is just like extracting something beneficial out of the urine and including that? Like we say, extracting and including that in medicine. Are those two the same thing or even similar?
No, that would be different. But people have. All I'm saying is, in this time and place, right? and this is a specific instance, right? Okay, so one, urine has been used in medicine today. People have drinking urine in the past under dire situations. And then three, there is perhaps, and people have said this, that you can get nutrients from it. So if urine is the only thing, camel urine is the only thing available, it's not saying to continuously drink camel urine like these Westerners want to imply that, oh, I'm just going to go drink camel urine for the pooping gigs, I guess. You know what I mean? Like that.
Okay, but you're not understanding the science behind this whole thing, which is drinking camel urine directly as it is considered harmful, dangerous, and probably not beneficial, even if you try to get the beneficial ingredient out of that urine. The beneficial ingredient in the urine is only beneficial if it is extracted and removed from its surroundings and then taken in a different way so that it is removed far from the harm. Just because
you think they had modern science to extract these things?
No, but the issue is you don't. That's not the point. Drinking the camel urine itself probably doesn't do anything good. That's the point.
Okay. I mean, I literally just looked it up, and there's studies on camel urine having medical benefits. So
really, are there studies which say that drinking camel urine has medical benefits, and it's totally okay?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So
I'm sorry, but I don't understand where you're looking at, because I'm pretty sure I looked at studies also represented by major health bodies around the world, which say that it's very harmful and very dangerous and should not be done. In fact, even the whole idea of like, if I'm abandoned, if I am left somewhere, I will just drink my own urine. Even that is a whole issue where a lot of the science says that it might actually do the opposite of keeping you hydrated or fed. It might increase your thirst even more and slowly kill you. So and the same thing with research on animal urine. It is. I don't think that there is an actual study which says that it's totally fine. I would like to see that study.
Okay.
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it, Hamad Ahmed says, for Hussein, is Muhammad splitting the moon a metaphor or a miracle from Allah?
There's people who have debated both, so I mean that really depends. I mean, you can look into it yourself. So
you got it. This one coming in from.
I want to say very quickly, by the way, the earlier reference about loins being between backbones and ribs doesn't actually add anything. Doesn't actually help the Quran at all, because it says that Allah creates humans from fluids that come gushing from between the backbones and ribs. But the loins have nothing to do with that whole process at all. Nothing.
Same. Any thoughts? We'll go to the next one. Thank you very much for your question. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Anton Gomez says, did Muhammad have grandchildren? Was it covered if he did? What does this mean? Like health insurance?
Yeah, I don't know what he means.
This one coming in from Isa Martel says, we got that one actually. That was when AP spoke Arabic. This one coming in from ES1002. Was that Arabic? I can't remember.
Yeah.
They say, Hussein, would you ever marry and sleep with a miner? Not like the gold miner though.
No.
Okay. This one coming in from WLZXX says, what's your view on whales, James? Do you like them? I got nothing against them. Lost Fan, thank you for asking. This one from Lost Fan says, AP, Christianity used to be anti-freedom and oppressive, but it's been reformed and is, in parentheses, somewhat peaceful. Can this be done for Islam? If so, how?
No, it can't be, because the two things are entirely different here. That's a long discussion, but when people say Christianity used to be oppressive and violent and all that, what we're talking about is Christians were at some point oppressive and all that. With Islam, we're not just talking about Muslims being oppressive and intolerant and aggressive. We're talking about Islamic sources themselves directly prescribing all of the intolerance and hate and aggressiveness and everything that we have seen in history, where you have direct commands in the Quran to fight the disbelievers and subdue them and until they are humiliated and pay the jizya and fight them wherever you see them, and they are worse than animals and so on. You don't have these things in Christianity. And I would agree that Christians in history have been quite intolerant and oppressive and all that. But the source of the intolerance and aggression is different, which is why you can reform Christianity based on its principles, but you cannot reform Islam based on its principles and make it something peaceful. In fact, the reformers of Islam are people like ISIS or others.
This one.
I don't know how you can say that when like the Christian Bible has, if not worse, when like they have this can't slaughter the Canaanites and stuff like that. But okay.
Well, but that's you know very well that that is entirely different from the Quranic context, where there it is something that gives where Moses, for example, gives an order to his people to do something, and in the Quran it is Allah directly giving an order to the reader of the Quran to do something, like to go and attack people and humiliate them. I would say both of those are bad, but they are completely different.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it.
Christianity's been worse, but whatever.
This one from
It is.
ASEAN Talks says, why didn't Allah teach how to filter urine?
What a discussion.
Riveting. This one, if you want to respond, okay, sounds like you're okay with not responding. This one from April Cox says, AP, are there any Muslims you really want to debate?
Me?
Is that one of your sock accounts, AP? Try to share your wish list online. What have you got?
Yeah, come on, James got to set it up for you, you know?
I did want to debate several people. I already had... I don't think there's anyone actually... Oh, I did want to debate Shabar Ali. I think that would be interesting, but I don't think he's interested in debating with atheists. I would love to one day have a debate with Zakir Naik, which would be hilarious in my opinion, but will never happen. To have more realistic goals, I think we could one day have a debate with Daniel Ikikichu, but he doesn't really want to after the way the last one about Allah's name ended, which was pretty bad. Since then, he started ignoring me entirely. But yeah, I mean, I'll just debate anyone who wants to.
You got it. In terms of medical disclaimers, Beamsy says the World Health Organization says it could be deadly to drink camel urine if it has MERS. Although, I mean, he just said could. So if you like to gamble, I mean, but this one coming in, but I would recommend take care of yourselves, folks. That's all I'll say. This one coming in from, well, although it is kind of true, it's kind of like, well, yeah, but a lot of things could be bad for you. I'm not defending it. I'm just
insert labels on everything now, so everything gives you cancer. So everything is microplastics now. You know, so.
Although, to be fair, the magnitude differs for all these things. But yellow banana in terms of the risk. They say, Hussein, do you accept evolution? And how do you think the science of evolution fits into creationism with mud and Adam and Eve?
I don't have like an opinion on evolution. I think adaptation is true. I mean, like, I think that's essentially like a fact, like animal adaptation. I think it gets weird when they try and say like certain animals changed into completely different animals when they can only show like, you know, a bird became like a different type of bird kind of thing. So you know, I'm kind of in a way agnostic about it. So,
but what do you think about devolution triggered by Allah, for example, in the Quran when he turns Jews into monkeys and pigs? Is that something that you would accept as possible?
As far as I understand, like there's Muslims, scholars who say that evolution is consistent with the Quran and inconsistent with the Quran. So I haven't looked into it enough to make a point about it. Does that make sense? Like I don't particularly care about if evolution exists or not. It doesn't affect my day-to-day.
Okay. But no opinion on the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Let me see. We might be all caught up. Let me double check. I want to say, folks, our guests are linked in the description. Do have another question here. I want to encourage you. You can check out our guest links, hear more about their views, see their other debates, all that stuff. Because, hey, I'm not encouraging you to per se adhere to or adopt anybody's beliefs, but you might as well, if you're going to not believe something or reject it or whatever it is, you might as well at least be informed about it, right? This one coming in from Alex Trimo Del Norte says, how do we know it's not just an excuse to suckle directly from the camels? Okay, no, stop. Okay, we don't have to do that. If you really want to respond to saying, you can. Oh, we got to actually wrap up really fast. So let me read this last one. The Mirage Hadith is, thank you very much. Reminiscence says the Mirage Hadith is Sahih and mentions that skies or heavens have doors that are guarded by angels who has to allow you to cross. Is it scientific?
Well, saying guards that have angels, that doesn't sound like something that's a scientific claim. That sounds like a metaphysical claim.
You got it.
I mean, there's I think, yeah, Ridvan did like a video on it, but I won't bring it up. But I did want to say that, like, I apologize for calling you A+, by the way, Ridvan. So, because you've been pretty decent on this, so pretty good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. That means a lot, honestly.
Yeah, no problem.
That does mean a lot. So thank you. I appreciate that very, very much.
It's been a very civil conversation. For real. I'm not joking. Like, you guys I never had to just stop, pull you guys apart in terms of interrupting each other, which is great. So it had great flow. It was tremendous. This last one isn't really about science, ES1002. So I want to let Hussein get to his workout. You can ask him next time. Huh?
Nothing. I'll talk to you about it later.
Hussein has to get jacked. It's time. So I want to say thank you very much, folks, for your support. I actually have to run pretty quick here. But what I do want to do, folks, is I mentioned that debate with Hussein and Matt. I'm going to throw that into the live chat. If you haven't watched that yet, folks, it was an epic debate. That just happened recently. So I do want to encourage you, check it out. I'll put that link in the old live chat, and I will pin it at the top. It certainly was a slobber knocker. It was a great debate. So look for that in the live chat. If you want to watch something, as I actually can't do the post-credit show. I've got to meet with somebody right after this to do a Zoom test for tomorrow's debate. So I wish I could do the post-credit show and hang out with you guys, but it'll have to be tomorrow. So check out that link that I pinned at the top of the description box. Go there and enjoy that debate. It's actually on whether or not Islam is true, so definitely related to this topic. And with that, I want to say, though, AP and Hussein, seriously, we really appreciate you guys. You guys are the lifeblood of the channel. You make it fun. And so thanks for being on here tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
My pleasure. 100%. So, folks, like I said, I actually won't have a post-credits show, so click on that link as I'm going to actually end the stream now. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow night on, no joke, the topic of whether or not men are wimps today. So you don't want to miss that one. But so I will